Hello everyone, Andy Wolverton back again with a look at the new releases in film noir on Blu-ray for the month of June 2021. I also post a version of this on my blog, which you can find at andywolverton.com. My goal is to cover all the first-time new releases, usually skipping reissues unless there's a good reason to include them. I also tend to focus mostly on films from the 20th century, but you never know what might pop up. I often use the terms film noir, neo-noir, and noir stained rather loosely, so while you may quibble with some of my choices, I hope these are films that you'll at least consider checking out. And thanks for watching. And I have to have my film noir coffee here. So this video is going to be a little short, at least what I'm planning it to be pretty short, because, well, there's just not that much coming out in June. Now, if you've followed my blog for a while, you know that this happens sometimes. So you may be thinking, wow, are we running out of film noir titles to put on Blu-ray? Has everything already been released? The answer is no, not even close. I hope to cover this topic in a future video, but no, there are still many titles that haven't been released on Blu-ray or DVD. But even though there's not a lot going on in June, a couple of this month's releases bring up an interesting topic that we're going to cover today. But first, let's get started with a title that will be available on June the 1st, and that's the British noir The Blue Lamp from 1950, directed by Basil Dearden. And this comes to us from Kino Lorber. Now, The Blue Lamp was a huge hit in Great Britain, and it won several awards, but it's a fairly standard police procedural, pairing a couple of young rookie policemen, played by Jimmy Hanley, and a seasoned, about-to-retire veteran, played by Jack Warner. Not that Jack Warner. Dirk Bogarde is quite good as the young criminal whose shenanigans are responsible for most of the action in this movie. The script was written by T.E.B. Clarke, who was a former policeman, and the picture is shot in a pseudo-documentary style that works well. It also presents ordinary men returning from World War II who've been hardened by the war, which results in them turning to crime. A good film, maybe not the type of noir that's going to wow you, but still a good and fine example, especially of the social realism factor that was coming into play in British noir. Far from Dearden's best work, this is a film definitely worth considering, however, especially for fans of Brit noir. Now, this Kino release contains an audio commentary by writer Brian Reisman, and other than a trailer, that's it for extras. Now, if you own the Studio Canal Region B Blu-ray from 2016, that has a different commentary from Jan Reed, a contributor to the film, and a professor named Charles Barr. That Studio Canal release also contains a locations featurette with film historian Richard Dockery and a BBC radio essay called British Cinema of the 40s. I'm going to stick with the Studio Canal disc, but if you pick up the Kino, let me know what you think. On June the 3rd, we have a Western noir, and I know a lot of people have an issue with the term Western noir, but this one is the real deal. Clearly set in the West, just as clearly noir. I'm talking about Lust for Gold from 1949, starring Glenn Ford and Ida Lupino. Now, if you've been a subscriber to the Criterion channel, you've probably already seen this movie and enjoyed it. The opening of Lust for Gold, also known as Bonanza, finds us in a modern times, with Barry Storm, played by William Prince, a young man who believes he has a claim to a lost gold mine somewhere in the Superstition Mountains. Now, here's our flashback. Barry learns the story of how his grandfather, Jacob Dutchy Waltz, played by Glenn Ford, discovered the mine and fell in love with a woman named Julia, played by Ida Lupino. Now, Julia is already married, but she withholds this information from Waltz. Lust for Gold is filled with greed, deception, and some really nasty moments, especially for 1949, that are quite brutal, making it a truly Western noir. Now, since we're talking about a Western, let's take a little side trail. If you're new to my blog, what I'm about to talk about is something that we run across from time to time, and you need to be aware of it. So, this is the first time Lust for Gold has ever been released on Blu-ray anywhere. It happens to be on a French Region B Blu-ray. Actually, this is a Blu-ray DVD combo. Well, if you have a multi-region player, no problem. But if you don't have a multi-region player, you might ask, okay, is this film likely to be released in North America? Again, good question, and this situation happens a lot, leaving collectors wondering if a certain film will eventually be released in North America on Region A. I'll say that it's at least somewhat likely, depending on a number of factors, particularly who owns the rights to the film. Home video rights and, well, film rights in general are a really funny thing, and it varies from country to country. In this case, Lust for Gold is a Columbia film, and many Columbia films are currently getting restorations and Blu-ray releases, especially from labels like Indicator, which is still a European company, but many of those releases are region-free. Now, several Columbia Noir pictures also appeared on 3 of the Noir archive sets from Mill Creek a few years ago. And of course, Indicator currently offers 3 Columbia box sets, which are fantastic. We talked about one of them last month. I doubt that Lust for Gold will appear in any of those sets, but I wouldn't be surprised if some company released a Western Noir box set. Just putting it out there. Now, there's also no indication of any extras on this French release, so that may factor into your decision. Here's my advice for this or any other film that is released only in Europe. Unless you're a huge fan of the film, I would wait and see what develops over the next year or so. Many titles are released in Europe first and then get a North American release within a couple of months or a couple of years. That's not a guarantee, but that's kind of the way things work. Again, rights issues really muddy the waters, and sometimes we have to wait. Also know that it's not unusual for some French releases of American films to contain burned-in French subtitles, or subtitles that you can't disable, which can be very distracting. Now, not all French Blu-rays are like this, but many of them are. Now, understand that a North American release could be right around the corner. It could be years away, or it may never happen. So my advice, again, is just to sit tight for a while, see what happens. On June 16th, we have another film that's coming to Blu-ray for the very first time anywhere. It's also, at least for now, only available on a Region B Blu-ray from Carlotta Films in France. It's After Dark, My Sweet, from 1990, starring Jason Patric, Rachel Ward, and Bruce Dern. So Jason Patric plays Kevin "Kid" Collins, a former boxer, now a drifter, who gets picked up by a young widow named Faye, played by Rachel Ward. The Kid is really hot for Faye, who lures him into a kidnapping scheme concocted by Faye, who lures him easily, and a shifty character named Uncle Bud, played by Bruce Dern. So the plan is to kidnap a local rich kid and hold him for ransom. But we know there's going to be problems because, number one, this is a film noir, and number two, the film is based on a Jim Thompson novel, and nothing ever works out well for anyone in a Jim Thompson story. Now, while I've read the source novel, I've actually never seen this movie. It's on Roger Ebert's Great Movies list, which is impressive, but the film has never been released on Blu-ray until now. You can find it on DVD, but this is the first Blu-ray. As I mentioned with Lust for Gold, you could hold out for a domestic release, but if you're a huge fan of this one, you might want to grab it. No word on extras or indestructible French subtitles. I'm going to wait, but if you pick this one up, let me know what you think. And finally, on June the 29th, a Blu-ray upgrade from Criterion, Samuel Fuller's Pickup on South Street, one of my favorite film noir titles. I am so glad to see this on Blu-ray since Criterion had the DVD that was put out, and that's been many years. I'll talk more about that in just a moment. So in one of his greatest roles, Richard Widmark plays Skip McCoy, a petty criminal who's always on the lookout for a big score. When he picks the purse of a young woman named Candy, played by Jean Peters, he finds the big score he's been looking for. Not money, but a packet of top secret microfilm. Now, by lifting the microfilm, McCoy creates quite a stir, and no one's going to be safe until the microfilm is recovered. McCoy's very good at evading the cops, but now he's also going against some really big-time operators. As she usually does, Thelma Ritter nearly steals the show as a professional snitch who may have gotten herself into something out of her league. Pickup on South Street is directed again by Sam Fuller, and it's one of his best. Now, like me, some of you may already own the Eureka Region B Blu-ray, which is fantastic. That edition contains an interview with critic Kent Jones, another interview with writer and film historian Francois Gurif, and a program from French television with Sam Fuller. But it does not contain an audio commentary. So the new Criterion Blu-ray features a new 4K restoration of the film, plus a new interview with writer Imogen Sarah Smith, which is always a bonus. And it also has a 1989 interview with Sam Fuller, the French program previously mentioned, and a printed essay from critic Angelica Jade Bastién, and a chapter from Fuller's posthumously published 2002 autobiography, A Third Face. But once again, this edition does not contain an audio commentary. Criterion, you're killing me here. But the Imogen Smith interview and the restoration are enough to make me consider a double dip purchase, but we'll see. So, again, not a whole lot going on in June. That is all the new titles that I'm aware of. And even though it's only a few, I hope I've given you some titles to consider. And if I've left out anything that you know of that's coming up in June, please let me know in the comments below. You can also find a blog post of these titles and previous noir releases on my website, andywolverton.com. Thanks for watching. See you soon.